Rabbi Erin Boxt. It's a pleasure to be in your beautiful synagogue.
Thank you.
Temple Kol Emeth in Marietta.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Rabbi Erin, would you tell us a little about your hat?
Sure.
What is it in Jewish tradition?
So this is called a yarmulke, pronounced or spelled yarmulke, but pronounced yarmulke. It is just a piece of cloth that we wear on our heads to symbolize a variety of different things. Humility in front of God. Personally, I wear my yarmulke because, no matter how good of a life I try to lead, there will always be space between me and God. It's sort of it's a symbol of humility in front of God. But you can find these kinds of these hats. The larger ones, like I said, yarmulke or skull cap in English. Littler ones are called kippot, made of all kinds of cloth. The yarmulke itself is not holy. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people will, if they drop their yarmulke on the floor, they'll pick it up and they'll kiss it. There's this
tradition.
It's a tradition. It's a misunderstood tradition. You pick up things and kiss them that have the name of God in them. Right. But a piece of cloth is a piece of cloth.
Right.
So not that people who pick it up and kiss it are wrong.
Right.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary. Yeah. Thank you. We are doing these interviews for more interfaith dialogue and more interfaith understanding. And so in the first part, I'd just like you to tell us a little about your perception as a Jew, as a Jewish leader, on the question of God, religion, prophets, heaven and hell, scriptures, things of this nature.
Sure.
Just as briefly as possible.
Asking a rabbi to be brief.
Yes.
Good luck. God is pretty simple as far as I'm concerned. There is a higher being that we don't understand, that we will, no matter how much we study or learn, will ever truly understand. God works God's ways, whether they're miracles or acts in the world. Just God acts in ways that God acts. God is monotheistic, which means that there's one God. As a Jew, I can tell you that the Shema prayer, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, is the foundation of the core belief in Judaism, which is that God is one, and there is no other God before God.
Very much in line with the Baha'i thought. And then religion in general. What's your perspective?
That's a very general question.
What should religion be? What
is
religion?
I think that religion is man's attempt to explain what they don't understand. Mm-hmm. While I believe that Judaism is the right religion for me, and I believe that Judaism is the right religion, I will never tell someone who is not Jewish that their religion is not right, because I'm not God. I don't believe that I have the authority to do that. And I think that so many of the world's religions, I would say probably all of the world's religions, with a few minor exceptions, all link themselves or find themselves attached to the very basic concept, which means love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. Everything else is just kind of commentary.
Secondary.
Right.
And commentary.
It's all commentary on that one line.
Yes. Baha'i faith says that religion should be a cause of love and affection. If it's not, you're better off without it.
I would agree with that statement.
What you're saying. So, prophets. I know there are many Jewish prophets, but tell us a little bit, what is prophet and prophethood?
So, Judaism has gone through a variety of different, I'm trying to think of the word, epiphanies, if you will, different moments in history. So we had, creation, redemption from slavery, revelation of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And I believe that when the early Jews got into the nation of Israel, there was a huge change, and as they became a temple-based, sacrificial cult, if you will, based religion. When the temple was destroyed, or I would say when the Jews were exiled and brought back in, and
Right.
the prophets became the mouthpiece of God.
Yeah.
The prophets were they trying to explain it in words that are the prophets. I like the mouthpiece of God. We'll stick with that.
Yeah.
But basically, God acted through the prophets.
Through the prophets.
And the prophets, people ask, well, what about modern day prophets?
Right.
I think the prophetic period ended a long time ago. Not to say that there aren't potential prophets now, but prophets for Judaism, it's a prophetic life based on pursuing justice, treating others with fairness and kindness, loving God in the way that we're supposed to love God. But also, as Judaism is a living religion, and the Torah is a living document, recognizing that the words in the Torah that may have meant one thing 2,000 years ago could have a total different meaning or understanding for us today.
But that was actually the next issue, the question of the scriptures. So you don't take things in the scriptures literally. It's a living document for which there could be no meanings.
I don't believe in black and white.
Right.
I believe in gray.
Right.
So I will usually not say things like, I do not believe the Bible is literal. What I might say is that there are parts of the Bible that I do not believe can have literal, that we should not take certain parts of the Bible literally. But to say that I can't look at the Bible literally completely, that's an extreme I'm not sure that I'm willing to take. There are, as I said before, and as you've reiterated, since it's a living document, there are things, equality in marriage,
Race issue.
Race issues, although not so much, there wasn't so much race issue in the Bible as much as there was issue of being the stranger in a strange land. But even the Bible says that we should treat the strangers as we want to be treated. But I'm talking about slavery. And the relationship of a man and a wife, to as husband and wife, to the responsibilities they have in their family, land ownership,
right.
And those kinds of things that in the Bible are fairly defined, but not necessarily. They don't have the same implications today as they would have 2,000
back
years
then.
ago.
Exactly, and that was really my next issue, next question, that the moral teachings of all these faiths that you're talking about, Islam, Christianity, Judaism,
Baha'i.
And Baha'i, and others, the moral teachings are fundamentally for the same purpose of forgiveness and kindness and compassion.
I would agree with that. I mean, obviously there are nuances that are differences within the different religions. Right. But I would say that all, at least all monotheistic religions have the same core concept.
Core concepts, yes. As you said, love thy neighbor. That's really the essential part. Now, and as you also said, at least for Reformed Jews, from what I understand, also Reformed in other religions, they do not take a lot of things in their scriptures literally because they say the time is changing, like the question of slavery or women, right, and so on.
Well, let me also make something very clear. As a Reform rabbi, sometimes my Orthodox colleagues and not here in Atlanta but other places, they make comments, and they don't mean to be disrespectful, but they don't. There's no other way of saying it. They look at Reform Judaism and they say, it's kind of like you pick and choose what you want along the way.
Yes, I understand.
And
same thing for a lot of denominations in Christianity.
Right. Well, I have a problem with that because I believe that all religious faiths, even the most strictest of the Orthodox of Judaism, Christianity, we all do that. I just pick one example that I use an awful lot. There's a passage in the Bible that says that if you have a wayward son, an argumentative child, who doesn't listen, after a certain number of warnings, I think it's 3, you're allowed to take that son to the edge of the town and then allow the elders of the town to stone him to death.
Yeah.
The rabbis of the Talmudic period looked at the laws in the Bible and wrote the laws of the Talmud to make it so impossible for that circumstance to actually happen. So then again, they've done exactly the same thing. They've looked at the Bible and they've refined and reinterpreted it for the time that they lived.
Right, exactly. Baha'u'llah, the founder of Baha'i faith, says that religions are really like chapters of the same book. But Baha'u'llah says they're progressively revealed to man through these prophets and maybe through these leaders to refine it according to the needs of the time. Otherwise, as you said, we would be stoning a lot of people.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be right.
No, that's correct.
So now, what are some, we were discussing it today in our interfaith gathering, that among the social teachings of the Baha'i faith are, for example, equality between men and women, independent search for truth, economic justice, racial harmony and racial tolerance and equality, things such as that. Are there certain rules and laws that you consider to be the social teachings of Reform Judaism?
Absolutely.
Such as what?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're the aspects of Reform Judaism. I would say they're aspects of Judaism. I mean, the Bible as a historical document is very much in line with the Hammurabi Code.
Yeah.
The idea that the idea that things were written down for a purpose, and the purpose was justice and equality. So the way that we do business interactions are expressly written in the Torah, and the way that we handle debts in our society are expressly written in the Bible. The way that we treat our slaves or our servants are also explained in the Bible. The way that a man and a woman should treat each other in marriage, equality in for the I'd say justice for the stranger in our midst. Probably the most often quoted, or the one line that's probably in the Bible more than anything else is, remember that you were slaves in Egypt. Remember I brought you out of redemption, out of slavery. I redeemed you out of Egypt. So remember this. Remember that you were slaves, so that when you deal with people who are different from you, or when you deal with people who are not the same as you, or you deal with the stranger, or the widow, or the orphan, or the elderly person, or the blind person, that you treat them with the same respect that God treated us with when we were redeemed from Egypt and brought to Israel. So
all of these foundational things were in the Bible.
Absolutely, all the moral teachings are all in the Bible for the most part, without any question. I can't think of anything. I cannot think of any moral issue that I fight for today that you cannot find in the Torah.
Interesting. Baha'u'llah says in this regard that this is the changeless faith of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. That these fundamentals are there, have been there forever. So in that respect, let me ask the final question, and that is that a lot of religions have come after Judaism, Christianity and Buddhism and Zoroastrianism, Islam and now Baha'i faith and so on. Now, all of them attribute, at least in part, to some prophecies of some kind. What is your vision as a Jewish rabbi on prophecies in the Old Testament, in the Bible? I'll come back as Lord of the Host and things of that nature.
Well, you asked me about prophets before.
So now this is prophecies.
Are you trying to are you asking me? I think I know what you're asking me. I think what you're asking me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you're asking me is, I'll pick Christianity for as an example. there are lots of, not lots, well, there are lots, many places in the Christian Bible that Christians link back to certain things that were said
in the Old Testament.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
So, referring that I'll come back and he has come back as Jesus. And
so
what is the vision of Jews?
The simple answer to your question is, it's very easy to write a sequel when you have the first one already.
Yeah.
So to look back in the book of Isaiah, for example, and to quote particular verses from Isaiah and say that those foreshadow the coming of Jesus, well, it's very simple to say that because you're writing a book after the fact. Mm-hmm. Not to say that that's wrong, but
it is their understanding.
It is their understanding. When God says, "There shall be no other gods before me," when God says, certain things in the Torah, it doesn't matter to me what it says in the New Testament because the New Testament is not my Bible. But I'll give you one example. Take the word Messiah,
right.
Okay, which means Redeemer or Savior.
Savior.
That word comes from the Hebrew word Mashiach,
Yes.
which means to be redeemed, that does not mean Savior.
Right.
It means one who is anointed. It's the anointed one.
Anointed.
Okay. In the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, I should say, when it talks about the Jewish Messiah coming, it speaks of three important things. Number one, it has to be a human being from the line of David. So it has to be a human from the line of David. Number two, it has to be a king, a human king. And number three, that person has to lead the Jewish people to be the kingdom of priests among the world, and that the rest of the world would live in peace and harmony. It says nothing about all the other religions going away. Okay? So now I'll go back to those three things. Has to be a human. Well, Jesus died. So that takes care of that one. Because
you say it has to be a human? So he was human.
Right, but he died.
But it was a human that would not die?
Well, that would make him immortal.
Yeah.
Jesus, as a being that rose from the dead, that's an immortal being. That's no longer human. Okay? So
that's what some people believe, though.
That's what Christians believe.
Christians believe that. Okay.
Jews do not believe that.
Right.
Jews, we believe what our Bible says the Messiah is going to be, and the Bible, the Hebrew Bible tells us the Messiah is going to be a human king who leads the people to peace. Okay, Jesus was not a king when he died. He was a teacher. He had followers. He had a group of followers, the apostles. Right. But he was a human that died. Okay. He rose from the dead. There's nothing in the Jewish Bible about rising from the dead. And thirdly, Jesus was, according to the New Testament, a descendant of David through his father.
Right.
But according to the New Testament, where's peace? Harmony. We talk in Judaism about we shall beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks, led by the Messiah. We haven't done that yet. So for us as Jews, we can't believe that Jesus is the Messiah because the conditions that would be required for the Messiah have not been met yet, according to our description of a word that we created.
Yeah, I understand. There are so many different perspectives. So, you mentioned the question of peace, though. The way Baha'u'llah explained it is that this peace building has been systematic and has been happening because it was Moses who gave us tribal unity, the tribe of Israel. By the coming of Jesus, we had the formation of feudalism, and by the time Muhammad, nation building was done. And now we are seeing more regional and global dimension of harmony, and finally we'll get to that peace that Moses and Jesus had promised.
Yes, but the Messiah, the Mashiach, the Anointed One, is a king that it doesn't take thousands of years. When this king is here, we will have peace.
We'll have peace. Immediately we'll have peace.
I don't know if it's immediate, but it's not going to take generations. Maybe it will. But the point is that you mentioned
God is patient.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that there are many different opinions.
Yeah.
There's one Jewish opinion on the Messiah.
Which is?
It's not Jesus.
It's not Jesus. Okay.
He hasn't come yet because the preconditions that were written have not been met. Yeah. Now there is the Messianic Jews. There's a synagogue, Beit Hallel in Roswell. With all due respect to them, I believe you can't believe in Jesus and be Jewish because the line of demarcation, so to speak, is that Jesus was not the Messiah.
Right, I understand. It's interesting though, because all the followers of religions are also waiting for another Messiah to come.
Right. Look, I'll be the first person to tell you if the Messiah walked through the doors of my building right now and said, "You idiot, I'm Jesus," I would not say, "Okay, you're wrong." I would say, "Okay, show me the way."
Yeah. So that question has not been resolved yet in people's mind. Thank you so much for this interview.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it very much.
Absolutely. You know, we didn't talk about heaven and hell.
Maybe you want to mention that.
Skipped over it.
I know that, but go ahead. Tell us something about heaven and hell before we depart.
So there is heaven and there is hell in Judaism. But there's not hell in the Christian version of, you know, fire and damnation and the devil.
Oh, I'm so glad.
The word Satan actually comes from the word Satan in Hebrew, and Satan just means adversary. So, like for example, in the book of Job, Hasatan, the adversary, gets into a bit of a debate with God about Job. The story, by the way, of the adversary angel being thrown out of heaven for arguing with God and being thrown into a pit of fire, that's a Jewish story. It's in the book of 2nd Maccabees, I believe. No, it's in the book of Enoch. Excuse me. The book of Enoch is a biblical Bible. Mm-hmm. It's a biblical book, but it's not in the canon. There were lots of books written during the biblical time period that didn't make it into the canon, predominantly for political reasons. For example, the Gnostic Gospels that have been come out that said that Jesus had a family and a wife, those didn't make it into the Christian canon for obvious reasons. And so the book of Enoch and the book of Maccabees and 2nd Maccabees also didn't make it into the Jewish canon because we got this new religion that's talking about heaven and hell and this devil. And if it comes out that the story of the devil being thrown, of the adversary angel being thrown into the pit of fire, if they hear that this is a Jewish story, it could have had really bad political ramifications for the Jewish community at 2,000 years ago. So we believe in heaven. Heaven is a place where God is. Heaven is a place where you're reunited with your kin. One Jewish belief says that in heaven, the righteous of all righteous sit there and learn Torah with Moses every day.
So heaven is being close to God.
Yes.
That's
being
exactly
being reunited with your kin.
Reunited with the kin.
Now, the thing about hell, by the way, in my opinion, hell it's not fire and I would say it's a place of being without God. So, for example, I die and go to heaven, and God says to me, "Here's the truth about me." At that moment, I then either accept the truth or not accept the truth. If I accept the truth, I go into this heavenly place. If I don't accept the truth, I go in purgatory. And for me, purgatory is a waiting period,
struggling
where God is not, as I'm trying to figure out the next step.
Yeah.
By the way, one last thing about hell.
Okay.
There is have you been to Israel?
Yes, a couple times.
You've been to Jerusalem?
Yes.
Okay. So there is a valley in Jerusalem, the Ginom Valley, or the Valley of Gehenna. It's right outside the walls of the old city. Mm-hmm. And I took a class there when I was studied there in Israel. It really is hell. It is so hot down there. It's set up now for like concerts and stuff in the late summer, early fall. There was a king, I want to say an Assyrian king, who in that valley would sacrifice babies to the fire. And that's how the idea of hell and fire came from, was from that particular place, the Valley of Gehenna, Valley of Gehenna or hell, because of the fact that children were being sacrificed to the fire.
Some imagery, in effect,
yeah,
what that is. You know, your thinking is very close to Baha'is. Baha'u'llah says that basically heaven is being close to God, as you were saying, and hell is being away from it. And in effect, this idea of purgatory, the struggle to understand the source of our existence. Thank you again. Rabbi Boxt, I thought you would have some questions of Baha'is, but because you don't.
It's not that I don't have questions about the Baha'is. It's just I have the same questions about Baha'i that I would have about any religion. And honestly, you're the kind of friend that you teach about your religion in everything that you do. So I know that if I were to ever have a question, I could either ask you, or you may answer it before I even ask it. In a conversation we're having about something totally, completely different.
That's quite right. Now, because you're a searcher and researcher in religion, and you're a rabbi, in my library I've been giving my books away. One small book of the Baha'u'llah's writings that I really like is called Baha'u'llah's Teaching on a Spiritual Reality, which is very much in line with what your concept of heaven and hell and God and so on that you explained. So I'm going to leave that with you as a gift.
Oh, thank you very much. That's right. I will for sure I will read this.
Thank you very much. And then maybe you'll have questions and I'll ask you.
Then maybe I'll have questions.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.